Hey, check this out. Pretty cool, huh? Welcome to RC Video Reviews. In this OpenTx snippet, I'll show you how to do a gear sequencer without using any extra hardware, just all done on the radio. Before I get into the configuration, I'm going to tell you that this gear sequence is designed for the doors to open, for the gear to either deploy or retract, and then for the doors to close. In each case, the gear doors finish the sequence closed. If you want a sequence where your doors remain open, I'm going to leave that to you to unwind. I'm giving you the most complex scenario I could come up with, and you can dial it back from there. Okay, let's walk through the sequence. We're on the runway, our gear doors are closed, and our gear is down. After taking off, we retract our gear by pushing up on the SA switch. When that happens, the gear doors open, the gear pull up into the retracted position, and then the gear doors go from the open position to close. Now we're out flying around, we have a good time, we're getting ready to land. We need to deploy our gear, so we pull SA down, the gear door open, the gear move into the down or deployed position, and then the gear doors close. Okay, so that's the full sequence. Let me walk you through the configuration on the radio. When I built this configuration, I realized that we want to treat it kind of like a blender. You know how when you use a blender, one of those food processors, you press the button for just a second, it grinds things up, and then when you're done grinding, you let it go? Well, that's kind of how the gear doors operate. The gear itself is actually really simple. We'll talk about that in a minute, but for now, let's focus on the gear door. So the idea is there are two interesting moments when it comes to the gear door. The first interesting moment is when we say, hey, let's retract the gear. That's an interesting moment because the gear door have to do something. The other interesting moment is when we say, let's put the gear down. That's interesting because the gear door have to do something again. So in both cases, what I've decided to do is use an edge switch, which in OpenTx acts just like a momentary switch. The cool thing about an edge switch is that we can assign a delay and say when that switch goes on, we want it on for 8 seconds. That's like hitting the button on the blender. You're pressing and holding it for 8 seconds. That's the interesting period. So there are two of those interesting periods. One is when we put the gear down. One is when we put the gear up. And then I use logical 3 to say, hey, listen, when I'm putting the gear up or putting the gear down, that's an interesting moment to me. So I want L03 lit when either of those two situations occur. So this logical switch is really simple. It's simply a momentary switch that says when SA is down, L01 should go on for 8 seconds. That's all it says. That little double arrow means instantaneously. I don't want any delays. Once I activate that switch, go ahead and activate L01 and hold it there for 8 seconds. L02 is just the opposite. When SA goes up, I want you to instantly start a timer and count for 8 seconds. When either of those conditions are true, L03 goes on. Let's check that out in practice. Right now, SA is down. You can see that it's bold right here. When I push SA up, L02 is going to go active, and when either of those conditions are true, L03 goes live. So here goes SA into the up position. You can see L02 is lit, so L03 becomes active, and it'll hold it for 8 seconds. There, L2 goes off. Same thing when I pull SA down. When I pull SA down, L01 goes active immediately for 8 seconds. L03 is lit, and now L01 will go off. Okay, so those are the interesting moments. The interesting moments are when we activate the switch. Now let's take action on those interesting moments. In my mixer, I've connected my gear doors to channel 5. Here are the two mix lines. I've got -100, max, and L03. So when L03 goes on, we want our doors to open. The second mix line is 100%, max, and not L03. So when L03 is off, we want our gear door to close. So let's move the switch and you can see what happens in the mixer. Right now, L03 is not on because we haven't activated that switch in the last 8 seconds. As soon as I move the switch to the up position, remember L03 is going to go on. So on the mixer, channel 5, I expect this line to activate. When that activates, the gear door are going to open. Okay, so gear door open and they're going to stay open for 8 seconds. After the 8-second timer, L03 goes off, and then this line becomes active and the gear door close. So that's it. Let's take a look at the mixer line specifically. All I've done is set gear door open, the source is max, and the weight is -100. You might have to invert your weights depending on how your servos are set up, but I just used a weight of 100. There's no other real parameters, and the source switch is L03. And then notice over on the right-hand side, I also did a slow up and a slow down to give it more of a scale effect. You don't want the gear doors just to go fling open and then fling close. That doesn't look good. But you can experiment and practice and set it up however you want. I just went ahead and used the slow up and down just for effect. Okay, so that's the first mix line. The second mix line is very similar. We just invert the weight and we use not logical 3, and I use the same up and down delay of 3 seconds. So that's the configuration for the doors. When we activate a switch, that's an interesting moment and it occurs for 8 seconds. So I'll pull the gear down, L03 goes on for 8 seconds. Our gear will go ahead and deploy, and then L03 goes off. So we're not L03, and that's our gear door closed. Now, as far as the gear itself, real easy to do that one. I just put those on channel 6, assign them to the SA switch, and I have a delay of 3 seconds up and down. So the idea there is that we have to give the gear door time to open. You might have to fiddle with that to get it right for your particular sequence, but you have to add a delay so you give that gear door time to open and close. And then I did a slow up and a slow down to give it a scale effect so we don't have our gear just snap down and snap up. The idea is just to have it slowly deploy and slowly retract. And that's it. I used a little bit of an offset here. That was just to park the center of the gear travel where I wanted it. And that's it. Real simple mix line for gear. We just added a little bit of a delay up and down to give the gear doors time to operate. And then we did a slow up and a slow down to give it that scale effect. Well, there you go. Now you know how to use OpenTx to create your own gear door sequencer. And it's free. You don't have to add any extra hardware to do this. Real simple configuration. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen.